Welcome to the Renegade Lifestyle Podcast with me, George Papp, seeking to empower you with practical strategies and information to exit the matrix by speaking to experts and individuals making a difference. Quick plug, check out the Renegade Lifestyle membership. Get access to our monthly research newsletter, live webinars, which is obviously packed with insider and detailed content from the team and special guests. We also help you build your own freedom business or location independent income, improve health, spiritual journey, sort of guidance as well from the team who have been actively part of this sort of community, who have done the work, and much, much more. Our aim is ultimately to help you move away from a system that doesn't serve you, rise above the matrix, and be ungovernable. Today we are joined by Rayo of the Vonu Podcast, which I had the pleasure to be on a couple months back. The podcast making you invulnerable to the coercion of the state and the servile society. I had the pleasure of being a guest, as I said. Great guy. Welcome to the show, Rayo. Thanks for joining. How's it going?
Hey man, it's great to be here. Appreciate the invitation. Yeah, we had a really great conversation. It was kind of I didn't know who you were. It was Matthew Raymer connected us, and anyone Matthew points my direction, I know is going to be someone worthwhile. So that was obviously the case, and yeah, I'm good to be here and good to have another conversation.
Thanks, man. Yeah, Matthew's great. I'm still in contact with him quite heavily. He's a great guy. We had him on the show as well. He's doing some great work in tech as well. So yeah, I mean, it's great to have those connections, and that's how it works, right? Sort of quick note to the listeners, really, just build the network. You get to meet amazing people doing amazing things. You learn from each other, and I think building that community is, even though not in person, it's definitely something that's really beneficial to not the, I don't like saying movement, but to yourself and to the community who are looking for freedom for sure. So, Rayo, I guess we'll start with, like I do with most guests, is the story behind your work and where you started and how you got to sort of be doing what you're doing now with Vonu, and basically your path to where you are.
Sure, yeah. I guess my path started when I was, I guess, 19 or 20. I think I was 19 or 20. I stumbled across I stumbled across a documentary on Netflix called 9/11 Loose Change, which I wouldn't necessarily agree with everything in there now, but nonetheless, it was really important in setting me on the path that I'm on today. Not long after I found Bill Cooper, who did a radio show back in the 90s called Hour of the Time, and wrote a book called Behold a Pale Horse. And I came across it when I was like 21. I was working at a moving company, so I just packed people's houses. I had headphones in. I just listened to Bill Cooper for like 8 hours a day. I mean, obviously it was definitely influential. And I've listened to basically all 2,000 hours of his archives, which I think are still up. I hope are still up. And I eventually in 2015, I was looking around for radio and podcasts, and I really couldn't see anyone out there that was doing what Bill was doing. I guess, and I didn't see anyone that was out there, spreading the message of truth and freedom that he did. And so it kind of started. He was a constitutionalist, so more kind of a minarchist. I started the podcast or the radio show in February of 2015, kind of from that mindset. And then it wasn't long after that I came across some agorists and free market folks, and I went down the Austrian economics rabbit hole, and for about 6 months, and I read Human Action, and went really deep into those paths, and then eventually I got to a point where it's like I could go into all the nuance and the details and learn about the Austrian business cycle theory, and but like it's like at that point I was like, okay, the free market's the way to do it. Coercion's wrong. Like, what are we gonna do about it? And, in physical space and time. So very quickly early on in my radio path, I switched over. We did in 2016 we started what I call the direct action series. We went like it was like 6 months. It was a 6 month live radio series where we just covered solutions in depth, and it wasn't obviously as organized or coherent as what I put out now, I think, but nonetheless that was like my big first task. Was people would always ask me like, so what do we do then? Like, if you have solutions, give us solutions. I was like, okay, here's like 100 plus, go have fun. And it was just the perfect thing, the perfect thing. I guess soon after that I found Vonu, which is briefly defined as volunteer. It's an awkward contraction of the words voluntary, not vulnerable. And it's basically becoming as invulnerable to coercion as humanly possible from public coercers, governments, and private coercers, just private individuals, private violators of person and property. And yeah, I stumbled across that book, and it was huge. You know, Rayo, the guy was went by the pseudonym of Rayo. People started calling me Rayo, so I call myself Rayo too now. But essentially, yeah, he this random guy from the 60s, this very obscure guy who no one would know about him if it wasn't for one, crazy archivist kind of like me now, I guess back in the 70s, 60s and 70s doing it, archiving libertarian zines. But yeah, this guy was a radical freedom pioneer in the 60s. He saw the world a lot like we do today back in the 60s, and so much so that he took radical, lifestyle changes to escape the tyranny of the servile society. And he started as a van nomad, and really saw viability in mobility. I know we talked about I guess strategic relocation in our discussion. Well, he was I guess he was an engineer, and he made a lot of his money. He made his money in the States, and then went and I guess at times spent his money in Caribbean islands, or Canada or somewhere else. So he utilized multiple jurisdictions. But yeah, he was a van nomad, and then he realized that that wasn't enough freedom for him, and he decided to go live in a tent in the Siskiyou Forest, which is Northern California, Southern Oregon. So this guy was really radical back in the '60s, and I guess kind of set the trajectory of like the most radical path of that you really can take as a Vonuan. But obviously, there's one of the mantras of Vonu is yours for the making. It's very customizable, really, as long as you're taking steps to make yourself more invulnerable to coercion. Then you're a Vonuan. Now, obviously, like it's a hardcore philosophy. So like, I wouldn't just say like it wouldn't just be like that generic, but you can kind of get what I'm saying. If people are taking active steps to increase their freedom or their vulnerability to coercion, then yeah, they're essentially a Vonuan. So yeah, I guess that's a brief overview of Vonu, and I guess so yeah, that was in 2016 when we started that podcast, and yeah, I guess since then it's just been it's I guess there are a couple other big things too. I went to Acapulco for a couple months and lived there, and then came out here and started the homestead here in Southern Illinois. Um, so yeah, now I'm out here, 22 acres with chickens, turkeys, and ducks. Got lambs and goats. We just processed our rabbits, so we had rabbits up until a couple months ago, and we've got big gardens, lots of stuff. So I mean, it's the start here for our node and the P.A.Z.NIA network, the SecRealm network that we're building, and it's kind of I don't know, maybe maybe an example people can follow, how to take a homestead off grid, because we're going really into really deep really big topics too, because SecRealm is about rebuilding all of human society upon a foundation of peace, truth, and voluntarism. So like obviously health and wellness, food, infrastructure, all of these things are super important. They're part of the human experience, and we need to have our own. We need to build I guess build our own alternatives, if I can talk. But yeah, we got to build our own alternatives for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can see mainstream health, mainstream living, mainstream just pretty much everything is to basically counteract what you're naturally made to do. In a sense of freedom, you're being limited on everything. They're trying to kill you. Their health systems, they're trying to limit you to having to rely on debt and banking for having a house that you want, or you want, like I said, not need. And then it's interesting what you said before, actually, about information. A lot of people just gather so much information, but don't take the active steps. And I think it is about mobilization and taking that first step to actually improve that in your own life. And then once you can do that in your own life, you can then help others. And I think that's really how you spread the community to grow and to help, I guess, the world in general, right? Eventually, that is the goal. Really, is to, I guess, at first help yourself, but only to have the end goal of helping others. And yeah, it's great stuff what you're doing, incorporating every single part of society, which is important. It's a holistic approach, because we have to take a holistic approach, in my opinion, just all aspects of life, and make sure that is in alignment, and definitely not aligned to the mainstream, which is basically the inversion of what is good. So, no, excellent stuff. So you
Mm-hmm.
touched upon the second realm. You touched upon the second realm. I've seen it on your website.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean? What does it mean to the viewers? Sorry, to the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So, what does the second realm actually entail, and what's the definition?
Sure. So, the second realm, as far as like the freedom context, I guess there might be video games or something out there that use the terminology, but at least in this context, there's a book that was released called Second Realm Book on Strategy, by a guy named Smuggler and XYZ, whoever XYZ is. But I've interviewed Smuggler a few times. He's on Twitter. He's kind of out there. Really hardcore crypto anarchist stuff. Been doing this for a very very long time. But anyway, the idea of the second realm is, basically recognizing and acknowledging that there are, I guess, recognizing the servility of the servile society, and the coercion of it, and I guess trying to build that parallel society. So the first realm would be, basically the first one would be the servile society. It's what I'm sure what motivates you to do this podcast and your listeners to listen to your podcast, and to use your services is to increase their freedom. They've recognized that society is not one of freedom. So that's the first realm. And the second realm is, the way that I guess the simple way I put it now is, the second realm is, that I guess that parallel society that's, pockets of freedom wherein we can actually exercise our autonomy. That's kind of the law. But it's based upon a lot of different, like permanent autonomous zones and temporary autonomous zones. So I guess permanent pockets of freedom and temporary ones. Speaking in terms of mobility. And I think I'll point people, the book is free. The audiobook is out on the Vonu podcast feed. But I always say, like, it's the most important book. I've written a book. My book's shit. Go read their book. Second Round Book on Strategy is the most important book to read, and like in terms of strategy, for sure. And we're talking about all human institutions. They talk about that, talk about the importance of second realm culture, like having our own art and music and such that's focused upon, that's like, foundation, like encouraging and empowering versus the mundane nonsense that you find, or even more, I guess the opposite of mundane, right? Some of it's really overt, just garbage. So it's, I guess, all aspects of the human experience. So we're trying to build, the second realm. That's kind of the concept of it.
It's interesting, yeah, because even arts, we take, even we don't really look at that, but music is massive influence, and in regards to frequencies and
Yeah.
how it works with the human brain, it really touches into your ego, a lot of the music, so it makes you act in a certain way. It's just interesting where you can overlook that very easily, but that is again part of the holistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned actually before about Acapulco. So you lived in Acapulco.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find that experience? Because a lot of people, I guess, who live in the US or Canada or wherever, they see Mexico as, okay, this is the place to be because there's a lot more freedom. The government doesn't have as much control in those areas. What is from someone who's lived there and has now moved to the US
Mm-hmm.
back again? What's your experience been, A, living in Mexico, and B, moving back, and what was the reason for moving back?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the way I got down there, I moved to, it was kind of 2018 was a really sporadic year. I made a random decision to move to Austin, Texas, to move in with my co-host of the Vonu podcast at that time. So I moved in with him for a couple months, and then he had a quick change of living situation, and I had to find a new place to live in Austin, Texas, which is super effing expensive, very quickly. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and one of my buddies, Jason Henza, reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'll be stopping by Austin. I can pick you up, and you can come stay in Acapulco come stay with me in Acapulco for a month and a half or a couple months, and see how you like it." Because he kind of saw it as a second realm, right? So he wanted me to experience it. So I went there for a month and a half. We didn't live in, I guess, in Acapulco proper, but we lived down, I guess, down the road in a town called Bonfil. And block away from the beach. It was, I guess that part of it was just, it was incredible. Obviously, relaxing, and invigorating. And going to the central market, which is a lot more agorist than anything you see. I mean, you see dead animal carcasses hang up. You can go get a whole cow if you, or get a whole lamb if you want to, or whatever, which you don't see in the States. So that was certainly unique. I guess I suppose, I guess I won't mention those couple things, but I guess the interactions with coercers, bludgies down there are a lot different than ones in the U.S. So if you get pulled over, a lot of times you can pay a cheap bribe and get away, without any issue. In some cases, you can even run away and they don't even chase after you and they won't even do anything. So I guess like so I guess that's one thing. We came across a toll booth, and like they had the normal toll booth workers in there, in the booths, but I guess the local cartel had taken over the toll booth, and they were charging like a fourth less than what the toll booth was charging. So they were standing in front of the toll booth taking the money, and then the cops were on the other side watching it happen, and just letting the cars through. So I mean, it's obviously like, yeah, armed cartel members, but they're saving us money on the tolls. So I mean, take it for what you will. And then I guess the reason I came back was I came back for the holidays, to spend time with my family, and I was going to go back for Anarchapulco, which is happening in February. But in, like, I guess it was like February 1st of 2019, a couple people that I, friends of mine in Henza's, John and Lily, up in Acapulco, which I'm sure you heard about. It was on mainstream, national news at that time. They had someone, shoot up at their house, and John got shot and killed, and Henza got shot and luckily survived. But so after that, I kind of decided I wasn't going to go back for Acapulco that quickly, because I was Henza and I were at that place, where that happened, multiple times a week, a lot. So if I would have been Acapulco, I probably would have been there with him. So I really didn't have. I'm not really afraid to go back, I guess, per se, but I really just don't have any motivation. I don't really have time to travel at this point. Managing the homestead and getting, trying to get this network set up. But yeah, that's pretty much the reason. And my I guess the conclusion, or I guess my overall view now is, I mean, it's just like Vonu, like it's radical self-liberation, right? So if you're a radical freedom pioneer, you can find a lot of opportunities in Mexico, but you just have to be aware that there are obviously dangers that come with it too, as everything does, right? Trade-offs. So because I know like Henza still spends 6 months in Mexico, so it didn't scare him away. He obviously doesn't live in Acapulco, which Acapulco is. It's funny because you hear from a lot of like anarchists that like, oh, it's this hub of freedom. You know how many like military was there? Like the military would, like there was a lot of cops, a lot of military. It was a police state essentially. So like Acapulco itself. So we never had any issues in that Acapulco, but with them. But Mexico City cops will try to extort you if you look white. Just so you know, if anyone was going through Mexico, so we got pulled over twice in Mexico City within like 5 minutes by different cops. It's crazy. But anyway, I guess that's
Wow.
the long and short of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a capital city, isn't it? So I mean, they're always a little bit more, strict, and they have more resources in those areas. So, but it's interesting that you had that experience, because you hear a lot about the cartels and stuff, and obviously they do have more of the moral control over there in a sense, which has its positives, right? Because the government haven't got as much control. But obviously the negatives, I guess, are that they are still doing some kind of coercion and control themselves, but probably actually at a lesser price in regards to taxes. You pay them for like protection, which they extort from you, obviously, just like the government, but probably cheaper. But yeah, this is
Yeah.
the reality in Mexico, I guess. So yeah, let's talk about
Yeah.
your homestead now. How long have you been there?
Sure.
How long did it take to set up? What were the processes of getting that set up? Why did you even decide to have a homestead? I know obviously there are
Hmm.
many reasons. You can be more self-sufficient and not rely on any issues within food shortages or any government policies. You're more self-sufficient, right? But also it does tie you down to a specific spot. So yeah, I just wanted to get your gauge on
Hmm.
that, and what your experiences are of having a homestead, and yeah, the process of getting that done.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So I guess just one final thing to tie up that last conversation. If people are interested more in the story, it actually came out on an HBO series called The Anarchist. So if you want to hear that entire story and a lot about the anarchist community on there, you can actually go watch it on HBO, which is strange. But anyway, yeah. So the homestead, like I said, I got back here like February of 2019. My family's owned land out here for a long time. My family's lived out here for a long time. And I guess this 22 acres is here. My parents bought it, I guess, back when I was like 16 or 17, thinking that maybe someday I'd want to live out here, which I never had any prospects of doing. Even then, just kind of came back here to figure out, what I was going to do next. And I got here and kind of got settled in a little bit and tried to do my first batch of chickens, which was just like 6 or 7, wasn't really big. So there's a chicken coop on the property already, so I figured I'd try it. They didn't survive. I didn't get anything from the first or the second batches for the of chickens that I did. But yeah, that was kind of the start. It was kind of just sporadic, and I had it here, and I kind of started messing around with it. So the chickens were the first venture, which was unsuccessful. Chicken coop isn't sealed up that well, and the raccoons are very vicious around here. We moved over birds to a new bird area this year, and we lost like 20 ducks. We have a lot of birds, but we lost like 20 birds over the course of like a week or two. Just they come in and get one or two and just thin it out. But so yeah, 2020 happened, and I just started, I guess, in 2019. John and Lily in Acapulco had adopted a carnivore diet, and they'd gone through major transformations in just a couple months that I'd seen them there. So I started making lifestyle changes and was eating a carnivore diet, and I was like, holy shit, if meat runs out in the grocery store, I'm screwed. So I went and got some lambs and goats. So I guess that was not necessarily good. Like doing things out of fear isn't necessarily a good thing, but I'll admit it here. But it was all for the best. It was all for the best. So I got the first for lambs and goats, and kind of got my foot wet in that area. And then Henza came back and visited in May, and I just kind of had this inclination, like I want to see if I can have people out here for a festival called Bonding Fest. See people out here to the homestead. Didn't think they would. But anyway, a couple months later, a month or two down the road, and it turned into not just a festival, but a whole I guess declaring my independence from America, essentially starting the Free Republic of Paznia. And ended up having like 20 or 30 people out here for the founders meeting. I got the Constitution right behind me. And we had 20, 30 people out here to sign it. It was a huge, great event, and really got the Free Republic, the parallel society started. But
How does that work? How does that work, Paznia? Because I have some questions in regards to like decision making in a community, because I feel like if it gets too large, you disconnect from the decisions, right? So how does it work? How do you guys operate there?
yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of, so I guess the way that it started with the initial 20 or 30 people, so everyone that comes out to Veritas Paznia here is vetted by me personally. So a lot of these people I've known for like 5+ years have been going to the Midwest Peace and Liberty Fest for a long time. And that is, for large communities or large organizations, dispute resolution and things like that are huge. Like you got to look at those things because there's going to be, humans get together, there's going to be disagreements. But what I guess the way that I forego that, because that's a really hard problem. Anarchists have been writing about this. Anarcho-capitalists have been writing about the problem of DROs and private arbitration for like 100 years. So like, it's not an easy problem to solve. So I kind of try to forego that by vetting and associating with the right people, I suppose, is the way to put that. So it's not a large community yet. I mean, it's slow growing, which is the way that we have to do it and the way that we need to do it. But really, it's finding that one or two person here or there that jumps into the Paznia Telegram committee of correspondence, and growing it slowly in that manner, and people building up their reputation in the second realm. Even digitally, it's not hard to do. But as far as decision making, I mean, so it's a decentralized, distributed country. So like, I call myself the coordinator. I just coordinate things. That's all I do. So like, it's really just whatever people are driven to do, whatever their passion is, whatever they feel like they want to do for the Paznia network, they can do. So as an example, a guy named Josiah Warren, pseudonymous Josiah Warren, started the Paznia General Bitcoin Fund, which is obviously a spoof on, I'm sure you heard of like the general fund that states have, and it's basically just a big, it's a big, slush fund for them to, to grab money from. But so we copied that, and we have our Paznia Bitcoin Fund. And I guess the past couple projects we've donated to, I think he donated to, or I guess we donated to the, I guess a whistleblowers fund. I guess the fund provided money for someone to help start their homestead. There's some bounties on, I guess, on his on the float page that he has, where if people start like an aquaponics system, if they, are committed to, starting a van nomad lifestyle, then we can help you with, getting your van converted, funds for that. So yeah, that was not my idea. I didn't really have that idea, but mutual aid is important, and he came up with it, and that's the thing now. And I don't have any involvement with that. I don't handle the funds. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, I guess that's it. It's kind of self-directed, I guess you could say. autodidactic country in that sense, where I mean, we know what needs to be done. And everyone that joins the Paznia network has already foregone the use of coercion. So at that point, it's just coming up with solutions, which is what I guess we all really like to do. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the main thing, isn't it? So does everyone live in the same spot, like as in the same vicinity, or is it a network at this point?
So I guess for speaking for Veritas Paznia here, so there's two people here, me, my wife, and then another Paznia lives here. But as far as the network, I mean, it could be varying situations. Some people have, as part of the Paznia network, which we're putting together a map and directory. But I guess these things could range from, like van nomad city squat spots. So if someone is traveling through and they needed a safe place to park, then those spots would be on the map. Maybe guerrilla gardening patches for van nomads who are traveling and maybe want to stop and grab some free food, or maybe people can plan their routes around those sorts of things. And then self-sufficient homesteads. I guess local health food stores, places to get good, good properly raised grass-fed meat, like all those things. Like I mean, that's all again necessary to the human experience. And if we're gonna have our parallel network, we have to have all access to all of those things. Um, so yeah, as like so no, it's a location independent country. So no, like, but we're not
Yeah.
in the same area. I mean, so we're here. So Veritas Paznia is 90 minutes, I guess 90 minutes or 90 miles east of St. Louis. There's a Paznia out in Ohio. There's a map spot in Ohio. There's one in New York. I saw forum posts about Paznia in somewhere in Europe. I don't really know much about it though, because I don't have to know about it. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like people can just declare their independence, join the Paznia network, and I guess if in that sense, if people are interested in joining it, we are, like I said, we're putting together the map and directory, and the more that gets fleshed out, the better. Because yeah, again, like van nomads could go ahead and they could chart logistics. We'd have our own little, that's how we get our logistics and transportation network, is by getting this map. People can visualize it and start planning, actually see the possibilities that are out there. So yeah, if anyone, again, location independent, doesn't matter where the hell you are, if you're interested, then we'd certainly love to have you. So Paznia.com/join is the form to fill out to join if you have like a spot you want to add to the map. And then if you're a nomad or a traveler and you just want access to the network, then it's Paznia.com/join too, is the form for that. And basically, I'm just kind of accumulating those entries and getting the map set up. I'm using OpenStreetMaps, and I just got to get it downloaded and hosted, and then it'll be really really slick. It just embeds nicely into the member side of the Paznia site, and super super slick. So yeah, I'd encourage people to get on board with that for sure.
Yeah, if we lost you at any point there, due to some connection issue, we'll have all the links in the description, show notes. But yeah, definitely check it out because it seems interesting. It's definitely a different way of doing things, and I like that it's more decentralized and location independent. Because these communities sometimes it's very difficult to work, right? Because there's too many egos in one place, and decision making is very difficult in those situations. And it often becomes centralized decision making. So yeah, that's interesting. I'll definitely check it out, and I definitely urge you guys to just have a look at it and see if it aligns with you, and see if that has any interest to you. Excellent. Going back to, I mean, this will be maybe the last topic before we close. You mentioned the carnivore diet.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had many health guys come here on the show talking about the benefits of not eating meat due to either biologically we're not made to eat meat, and fruit predominantly and vegetables give us the nutrients we need, and the protein aspect is basically another psyop. What are your thoughts on that? Because obviously you're going head first the other way. What's your sort of thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I guess I will say I did nose to tail carnivore for pretty much up until I even pull up a calendar to see when I maybe stopped. Maybe it was like I'll say like the end of 2022. I kind of I guess maybe more like the, I guess, harvest in 2022, because I started working back in like squash, squash, and I can't remember for anything else, but mainly type squashes and watermelon. I started working back in. Um, but now I guess I'm not necessarily, I'm not strict carnivore anymore. I still eat, high quality. I still see a huge value and necessity in high quality animal nutrition. So like I still eat, like I eat testicles, once a month. Usually I try to, for testosterone. I, obviously liver is good. I like brain, occasionally. But I mean, I'm working in, I eat potatoes. Potatoes now. I'll eat, certain types of beans. Um, I make my own organic bread, white bread for, good delicious sandwiches. So I guess the where I'm more at now is it doesn't really, it's less, I guess. It's obviously what you put in your body is important, but what you don't put in there is even more important. So whatever foods you're eating, just make sure that the highest quality that you can get, and you're probably not gonna have any issues. Because we're very, I guess we're pretty adaptive. In our physiology, as far as I can tell. But yeah, I mean, I still do see. Um, yeah, I think there's certain, hormones and enzymes, and like liver is so loaded with, with, vitamins and minerals, like which you can't find easily. So I definitely see a place for, especially like, so in a different world where the soils aren't completely nutrient depleted. I would obviously, like, it'd be nice to have to spend less effort on, like animal husbandry, and be able to get a lot of those minerals and nutrients from the ground. But now, like, like nutrient upcycling with beef or lambs, it's kind of necessary. And the other aspect too is, like, where I am, they still do conventional agriculture, so they spray bullshit, um, fungicides and stuff around. So the lambs and, the lambs and the goats, they have a liver that processes a lot of that stuff, so it doesn't actually come to me. And obviously plants have their own filtering mechanisms too, but that's just an example. Yeah, um, so yeah, I guess I'm not as dogmatic as I was about it before. Because I used to say, and I mean, I still would say, like, the vegetables you find in grocery stores here in the U.S. Probably aren't ideal, and I mean, they aren't really found in nature, right? But I but I mean, like, so yeah, as far as like the carnivore diets, not, I guess it's not, I'm not really doing that anymore, but I still, yeah, high quality animal products is still a huge part of my lifestyle.
Sure. Sure, yeah. I mean, I've heard so much about the US in regards to their stuff that they have in the grocery stores. I mean, it's just insane. And then, like, I mean, I was in the UK, quite similar actually, very similar, what they have in the grocery stores. And we know it's all sprayed with BS, and it's all got chemicals, the fruit, the veg, everything. Moved to Europe, and I think one thing that Europe does have is, I think they're a bit more food, their nutrition on food is better, in my opinion, even though it is still in part of an EU, BS centralized authority. But I do think that food wise, they do grow a lot more organically in nature. It's the people's nature to do that. So I've found that a massive difference for myself, being moving from the UK to the Mediterranean, is that aspect for sure is different. And we have villagers often pass by the house who are older, because there's not many young people here. And we're like new in the village, and they'll just pass by with oranges this season because it's December. They were giving us oranges. They were giving us pomegranates in November, because that was the time of the year that they come out. So it's just an interesting aspect. And they all grow them themselves in their own land plots. So they're very self-sustainable, which is interesting. They
Yeah,
they don't
yeah,
they
and
don't do very well with finance over here, though.
yeah. Yeah, so I guess I was just going to add that, just speaking, because so if you look back into the traditions like Ayurveda, or traditional Chinese medicine, like with food and eating too, like, yeah, so like, food is supposed to change seasonally. Like, if you're eating with nature, the food you eat is going to, depend upon, where you are and what's available at that time. So like, that's the thing too. Like, eating, and this is why, like, I think personally, like, the people who just eat, like, the feedlot steaks and, eggs from the grocery store. Like, I don't see that really as like it. Like, maybe for a time it could, maybe for a time it could, reverse some deficiencies, but at some point it's going to have diminishing returns, especially if you're, consuming so much atrazine, like this is the terrible stuff that you find in conventional foods. But I guess, yeah, that too, like, for a time, that like for a time my body really craved, and it really wanted liver every week, and it really wanted to eat brain every week. Like I needed to do it. And because I think I was restoring, I was fixing deficiencies that I'd grown up with. And then it kind of changed, and I started to kind of be drawn towards other foods. And I guess that's kind of that too, is listen to your body. And yeah, I guess that's more, yeah, probably the most important thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the only thing with that is that, for example, sometimes my brain and body wants sugar, and it will crave chocolates and
Well, yeah, yeah,
sweets
yeah,
and all kinds of shit. So it's difficult sometimes. But
yeah.
no, I get what you're saying. For sure, high quality produce is important. It's so important, and no one really understands that. I mean, I'm a keen advocate for terrain theory. I believe that that's makes more sense, to be honest. I mean, we all know germ theories from it's
Mm-hmm.
making the pharmaceuticals millions and billions every time they create a psyop, and then they they can make their
Yeah,
money and
talk
control
about
people, make
inversion.
people sick, blah blah blah.
Talk about inversion. Yeah, yeah, germs. And so germ theory. You got to kill all the germs. Well, what do seeds do? They germinate. Um, so yeah, it's like killing
Yeah.
life essentially, by like with the words.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
exactly. Yeah, exactly, man. Let's end here with any advice that you can give people who are just starting their journey to freedom, let's say, or let's say they've come across information, they kind of know what's going on, but they're not, let's say they haven't made that first step, or they've made one step and they want to take a full path, let's say, to freedom. What would be your sort of advice to them?
Yeah. So really, just overall, it's what I've said for a number of years. The name of the game is cutting ties to the servile society. So whatever way, one tie at a time. And if you want, like, as a more practical example, if you got credit cards and mortgage and these things, like don't look at the mountain you have to climb, because it's going to be like disheartening to see how much, like to see how tied in some people are um, to the servile society. Um, but yeah, just one at a time, one step at a time, one day at a time. Make liberation a habit. Make it where you're doing one thing a day, regardless whether it's one super small thing or one big thing. It doesn't matter. And if you look back on it, 5 years later, you'll wonder like how you got to where you are. You look back and you'll actually see all the progress that you made. See, like I was saying, none of this stuff was planned. Like I didn't expect to have a 22-acre homestead with with hopefully taking it off grid soon, with breakthrough energy, potentially, and building up a parallel network that's actually like it's starting to come into vision. Like, so yeah, I guess yeah, one step at a time. And I guess really the just again, just another piece of practical advice: financial independence is hugely important. And yeah, a lot of people had to do things they didn't want to do in 2020 or 2021 because they were reliant upon a paycheck from the servile society. So that's really one of the biggest controllers of the first realm in the servile society is that financial aspect right now. So start working on side hustles, whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're feeling drawn to do. I mean, just go for it, do it, and start building, start taking steps. And not everything will be successful. I had to stop a lot of projects over the years, but you'll find those things that are, and they'll help you to get out and get your freedom back. So yeah, and I guess check out the Vonu podcast. We've been going since 2016. There's a lot of episodes. But yeah, season 1's philosophy, season 2 is the practice of Vonu. Only talking about stuff that Rayo talked about, solutions that he talked about in the 60s and 70s. And then season 3 is our permanently ongoing season where we develop Vonu and have really, really incredible conversations, and actually building and doing things. And I guess I'll mention one other thing. We had our first Department of Technology meeting last night. Matthew Raymer was there, along with like Dave from Start9, Thomas Friedman from Pirate Box. We had just so many great people there. And yeah, I guess I thought it was a big task, and it is a big task, but I thought it was kind of insurmountable one. But there's building our own internet's going to happen too. So yeah, get involved with P.A.Z.NIA, join the second realm. I'll kind of end there.
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good. It's interesting what you said about looking back. It's so interesting because while you're doing it, you kind of feel like you're not making progress until you look back years
Mm-hmm.
what you were doing a year or two or three. So yeah, that's the key, is the small steps, but make those steps and don't just look at the mountain. Before
Yep.
you know it, you'll be very close to the peak, and you'll be looking down at, like, a few years ago you were at the bottom there. So no, nice one, nice one. So where can people find you and your work?
Yeah, so vonupodcast.com, VONU podcast.com is for the podcast, for all things Vonu. Libertarianattack.com is our publishing outfit. We republish a lot of those old libertarian and Vonu zines, made them into paperbacks. We've got author clients who publish, amazing, crypto agorist, anarchist fiction, like Brushfire in 2048, or 2048 being one of our newest releases. And hashtag Agora, second round book on strategy. Those are all there too. We also have ghost pads and ghost phones on the LU publication site. So yeah, books, privacy tools, and even Or's Apothecary, some comfrey salves and things that we produce and grow here on the homestead for health purposes. So yeah, I guess, and then P.A.Z.NIA.com, P.A.Z.NIA.com to learn all about the Second Realm Network currently under construction. With that, George, I appreciate the invitation to come on, and it was a great conversation.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much. Definitely check out all of those links. We'll have them all in the show notes. Also, check out our website, renegadelifestyle.net. And remember to share and subscribe to this podcast and Vonu Podcast as well. And if you know someone who will find this value, definitely share it to them, and share both of our podcasts, really, for valuable information to help enlighten people to freedom and make those first steps. So yeah, peace and love to you all. Thanks for listening.